Welcome to Analyzing the 1%. There has been a very dynamic turning point in American history ever since November of 1963, with the assassination of our great President John Kennedy. And the fact is, that case has never been clarified, it has never been resolved, and our nation has gone into a downward spiral ever since that time. We've entered into a kind of decadence whereby we are being dominated by a force other than democracy. My name is Gilbert Gambucci. I am an occupier at Wall Street because I acknowledge that the economically powerful people are a very serious problem. To be better conscientized, as we say. We need to become better aware of them. I am from Stop the Destruction of the World Association. By profession, I am a pianist and a psychosocial analyst. And today we're going to analyze who ordered the murder of the late President John F. Kennedy. And you can't even talk about it anymore because ever since that time, ever since 1963, there came this term, a conspiracy theory, because the lawyer Jim Garrison, who was immediately on that case after the assassination, to show that it was a plot, there were many people involved, that it was in fact a conspiracy. But a corrupt federal judge at that time, Edward Haggerty, he wouldn't allow a policeman to testify that Garrison had in order to prove the conspiracy. And so the case was shut down, and the media, they began to attack Jim Garrison, trying to show that he was in some kind of a paranoia, and the term conspiracy theory came out. So anybody who thinks that there was more than just one person involved in that assassination is a kind of paranoid lunatic conspiracy theory type of thing, because the media is owned by the 1%. They've bought it up through the years. And so really the media, it's just a kind of public relations for the Rockefeller Rothschild regime, as I call them. This group of people, these multi-billionaires centered around the Rockefeller Rothschild, together with some other families, like Harriman, Warburg, Carnegie, Morgan, and Oppenheimer, DuPont. It's a little group of families. And of course, they do everything with their public media, the corporate media, to keep us away from the fact that they are very well organized and they have an intention for our society. And in fact, there are two things that are taboo to talk about. Otherwise, you're labeled, conspiracy theory, and also the question of secret sect societies, because these people have organized themselves around their secret sect societies and the purposes that they have for humanity. And so, when something is hidden, in psychological terms, we hide what is sick. What is healthy, what is beneficial, we don't hide. But these societies, these international bankers and their sect societies, they are secret because they are sick. And if people knew what their intentions were, they wouldn't be allowed to exist. And so if they can be hidden, if they can remain hidden, then they could act. You see, so it's essential for them that we don't talk about sect societies, that we don't talk about plots, because they want us to believe that the assassination of our great leaders, Martin Luther King, Robert Kennedy, Malcolm X, and many people, they want us to believe that these are random incidences coming from different sources, and not that it's something more organized than that. And they take their philosophy from two thinkers of note. Generally speaking, it's Thomas Malthus and his principles of population, because the 1%, as they think they own the world, they're concerned about the population. And Malthus, he believes that an increase in death rates is positive. It's something positive to have disease, war, so-called natural disasters, induced famine. And they use this idea from Malthus. Also, they use the ideas of Bertrand Russell, this apparently logical objectivity for humanity, without any regard for spiritual or moral considerations. And so with these, they set about usurping what our founding fathers laid out for us. That's why, for example, nowadays, it's a kind of a joke in the political system. Your choices are somebody who has been completely bought out by the economically powerful, or somebody who is one of them. You know, that is to say, the democracy, it's just a show nowadays. And you know, Kennedy, in his time, he was about making it possible to print U.S. notes. He was printing, he began printing money, non-interest bearing, instead of the Federal Reserve bills, you know, produced by these Knights Templars. You know, the international bankers, they're from a line of the Knights Templars secret society. And Kennedy was taking this out of their hands because he saw the government was subject to these people. And in fact, our founding fathers say you can't have our notes, the money, in the hands of private bankers. You can't do that. And so look at this quote, for example, of Thomas Jefferson. Look at this. And this is not only Jefferson's idea, but Adams as well, Alexander Hamilton, Thomas Paine. Look, if the American people allow private banks to control the issuance of their currency, first by inflation and then by deflation, the banks and the corporations that will grow up around them, you know, the multinationals, will deprive the people of all their property until their children wake up homeless on the continent their fathers conquered. So Kennedy was about putting a stop to this in very real terms. Another thing that Kennedy was doing is that he decided that he was going to dismantle the CIA. Because, you know, the CIA, it's owned, it's financed by the economically powerful people. A very small percentage of it works for the United States government. It's a kind of a fake front. But it's the Rockefellers who set up the CIA. And they finance them. That's why they boast that they have an unlimited money source. And they're accountable to nobody. And Kennedy perceived in his time that they were taking military operations that he knew nothing about. The commander-in-chief of the armed forces didn't know what was going on. CIA were taking directives. Because the CIA doesn't work for the United States government. They work for the Rockefellers. And so he was taking, you know, there's a National Security Act and Memorandum number 55 of June of 1961 that gave him the authority to begin dismantling the CIA. And in fact, just prior to his assassination, he issued a presidential mandate, an order to the CIA, giving them 30 days to apologize on television before the American people of their involvement in international drug trafficking. You know, so he wanted to get rid of the CIA because he perceived that they're very dangerous. And in fact, they are the right arm of the economically powerful people, as we call them, the 1%. And you know, the first targets of CIA control, that is, people who the Rockefellers insist they need to control, because they think that they own the world. They think that they own the natural resources of the world, the petroleum, all the goods. They own us. They own our lifestyle. They're a very imbalanced group of people. And the first targets of CIA control internationally are, look, political parties. And people from CIA themselves say this. Political parties, security services. They insist on dominating military institutions. They completely infiltrate trade union organizations, youth and student movements. At Occupy Wall Street, we see CIA people all over the place. Cultural organizations, professional societies, public information media, they've just bought up. It's no longer infiltrated, they own it. And so I would like to focus a little bit on this security services, because even presidential secret security services are CIA. They're not only infiltrated, they are organized, they are CIA. And so when Jim Garrison was trying to prove, when his case was thrown out by this corrupt federal judge, he was showing what is known as the Zapruder film. It's a video, amateur video of Kennedy passing by in a place where at the last minute they deviated the route that the presidential arcade was taking. And it was on there were like very few people there, and right at that place where it was deviated was where the assassination took place. And the Zapruder film shows very clearly, as well as the Yamamoto film, another one, the amateur film showing the president. It shows very clearly the driver, William Greer, turning over his shoulder with a gun and shooting the president point blank. And I want to show you this film. And take note that he turns, and right at that point, you can see the gun, he shoots point blank, and you can see the results of that. There's no sound, so you don't hear it, but you can see the reaction of people right at that point. You see what happens. You see Jacqueline Kennedy trying to get out of the car. You know, the danger is not outside, the danger is inside the car. You can see a person on the grass behind hit the deck right at that moment. And you can see what happens to the president. But watch the driver. Okay, let's see this Zapruder film that was shown in this court that Jim Garrison wanted us to see. Watch closely the driver here. He turns, you can see him point, you could even see the metallic gun shining for a moment, and then right when he shoots, he pulls back into the car. He pulls his arm back in. Take a look. Now, there's an amazing FBI document, memorandum of November 23rd, 1963, states that the FBI refused to release the Zapruder film to the American public because, quote, it would not be of any evidentiary value. That is to say, there's no evidence there. Or is it the opposite, that this film shows that, look, the Secret Service in the limousine killed Kennedy, so obviously there's a plot there. In fact, there's a lot of people involved. And you know, many times the intermediary people, the people who carry out the plans of the economically powerful, they're the same people in many different cases. You know, like Ramsey Clark, for example. he was very active shutting down the Jim Garrison investigation into the Kennedy assassination. And in fact, he had replaced the slain Robert Kennedy as Attorney General. You know, he took his place, and he was very busy. For example, when Martin Luther King was assassinated, Ramsey Clark and then the head of the FBI, J. Edgar Hoover, in less than one day, they told the media that, no, there was a lone shooter. There was no conspiracy, just a lone shooter, with no investigation, you know, just to shut the thing down. Even though in 1978, the House Assassinations Committee proved that King was assassinated as a result of a conspiracy. And so we see that these intermediary people, they're always the same, you know. In fact, who has the power to be able to control so many people to plot out this assassination? You know, because the assassination and cover-up process, it included members of the Dallas police force who were around the situation and deviating the motorcade. Including its chief, the chief of the Dallas police force, members of the FBI, including the director of the FBI, the Presidential Security Service, working together with the Dallas police street security. Mafia people were involved. The federal judge hearing Garrison's case, of course, was involved. A U.S. Attorney General, you know, this Ramsey Clark, former CIA director. That was Ellen Dulles, whom Kennedy had fired, various members of the CIA, as well as gophers employed by the CIA, you know, all of these people who they said assassinated Kennedy, the members of the Warren Commission, as well as the President of the United States, Lyndon Johnson at that time, who set up this Warren Commission, knowing of its cover-up objective in order to do this, create a report. And all of the members of the Warren Commission, you know, former presidents of the World Bank and, you know, all acting faithfully to a small group of psychotic multi-billionaires. Just unbelievable. And we have to wake up to this if we're going to recover our nation, that the main problem that we have is a little group of these international bankers who are very fierce, very psychotic, and organized against our nation in a way that we have to stop pretending that they don't exist. And you know, you can't solve a problem of which you are unaware. We have to become aware of the problem in order to solve it. And if you don't want to become aware of it, it's because you want the problem to continue. You know, in reality, we have to see this better. And in fact, Kennedy was trying to warn us of them. I have a little excerpt of a speech made by Kennedy. It was an address given to the American Newspaper Publishers Association on April 27th of 1961. And he was talking about these economically powerful people and the way they are, their secret sect societies. And he was asking the media at that time for their help in making the American public aware of these people. Take a look. Let's check this out. This is very interesting. I would like us to see this. This is Kennedy himself speaking.
Ladies and gentlemen, the very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society, and we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. No expenditure is questioned, no rumor is printed, no secret is revealed. I am not asking your newspapers to support an administration, but I am asking your help in the tremendous task of informing and alerting the American people. For I have complete confidence in the response and dedication of our citizens whenever they are fully informed. That is why the Athenian lawmaker Solon decreed it a crime for any citizen to shrink from controversy. And so it is to the printing press, to the recorder of man's deeds, the keeper of his conscience, the courier of his news, that we look for strength and assistance, confident that with your help, man will be what he was born to be, free and independent.
Now look, even though Kennedy was perhaps the most loved president in all of American history, did the media help him to reveal these economically powerful people and their secret sect societies with their multinational corporations as to the danger that they are to American society and to the world? Did the media help? No, of course not. That's why I say that corporate media, mainstream media, is the most corrupt institution in the United States today. And look, 30 years later, I want to show you a quote from David Rockefeller in relation to this. I have it here on my laptop. I have to read it from the laptop. You can read along with it. This is, well, Rockefeller is the founder of the Trilateral Commission. In an address to a meeting of the Trilateral Commission in June of 1991, he's speaking to media people. Let's look at this. We are grateful to the Washington Post, the New York Times, Time Magazine, and other great publications whose directors have attended our meetings and respected their promises of discretion, or rather secrecy, for almost 40 years. It would have been impossible for us to develop our plan for the world if we had been subject to the bright lights of publicity during those years. But the work is now much more sophisticated and prepared to march toward a world government. The supranational sovereignty of an intellectual elite and world bankers is surely preferable to the national auto-determination practiced in past centuries. That is to say, this above the national, above the nations, this intellectual psychotic group of multi-billionaires, this is surely preferable to national democracy practiced in past centuries. This shows very well the intentions of the economically powerful people, centered around this Rockefeller, Rothschild, very sick regime. And you know, I am with Kennedy. We have to expose these people for who they are if we're ever going to recover our nation. It's absolutely fundamental. And those who wish to continue to pretend that this problem doesn't exist, that is because you want the problem to continue. So the dividing line is exactly this. Whose side are you on? You know, as we say, occupy. Occupy means take back what rightfully belongs to you, that the 1% has stolen from you, either illegally or immorally. So occupy, and see you again on Analyzing the 1%.
So we occupy for change.